Robin Hood. He steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Legendary character, immortalized in films, TV shows, right? Here we got Douglas Fairbanks in the 30s, a little, or that might have been in the 20s. Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. If you haven't seen this, it's on everybody's Best 100 Films Ever Made list. Robin Hood Men in Tights, spoof. Kevin Costner's Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and Russell Crowe, and of course, Walt Disney. I want to just go over what I wanted you to get out of doing Robin Hood, beyond just, answering some questions on a discussion board. There is a method to my madness. So, why do this case? Well, in thinking about Robin Hood, and obviously what we did was, we didn't have a whole lot of information to consider, but you recognize that case analysis is just a more specific form of problem solving. And you realize that you have the skills to analyze cases. You figured out what his mission was. You figured out what the situation was. You came up with alternatives for him to pursue. And I think it's a fun case. So that was my reasoning behind assigning this case. And I once saw a presentation where someone talked about how analyzing cases is a lot like writing a short story. You have the context, you have the characters, there's a problem or a crisis or something that needs to be done, because otherwise it's kind of a boring short story. And then there's some kind of resolution to that. So in the case of Robin Hood, the context is he's sitting at dinner thinking about all his problems. And the problems are, in this case, other people, right? They're running out of food to feed the merry men. The barons are offering him a deal. King Richard's still kidnapped. There's not enough food in the forest. The characters, we have Robin Hood and Much the Miller's Son and Little John, and so we have these characters, and if you think about them, they're our company, right? Robin Hood and the Merry Men are our firm. The problem or the crisis depends on how you define it, but if you think back and think of, oh yeah, what's the mission? What is Robin Hood trying to accomplish? Right? Get revenge. Does he really want to feed the poor? Right? So you think about what it is he's trying to accomplish, what's going on in the context, and what's going on with his organization or with the characters, and then you provide some kind of resolution. And that could be, he flees to France and kills the sheriff and says, to heck with the merry men, I didn't want them to begin with, and I just got saddled with them. Or he says, ooh, now I've got this whole other stakeholder group that I've got to pay attention to, and now I should, try and do other things, and maybe the best way to do it is to make a deal with the barons and just choke on, my revenge stuff and kind of change my mission. So, lots of different ways of thinking about, how this could end up. So if we put that in strategy terms, we have our context, which is the external analysis in which the firm is operating. And that's going to be the source of our opportunities and threats for the company. And the characters, if we think about, the organization, certainly there's probably some people that are going to be mentioned, right? The CEO and some other top managers and employees. But if we think about their mission, their financial situation, their competitive advantage, and what's going on inside the company. So what do they want to do? How healthy are they to accomplish it? Like in Robin's case, right? His resources are stretched pretty thin. And what's the competitive advantage? Ooh, maybe he doesn't have one. Maybe that's eroded. So these are, kind of coming up with the strengths and weaknesses of the firm. And so what strategic management is trying to do is fit the strengths and weaknesses of the firm to the opportunities and threats in the external environment and figure out how to maintain that fit over a long period of time, right, so that we can get competitive advantage. So after we've kind of examined these things and set them up, then we try and focus in on, well, what exactly is the problem or the crisis, and develop a recommendation for what Robin Hood or Crown Cork and Seal should do. And then how should they do that? How should they go about implementing this? And that's the crux of all case analyses. I have a couple more jokes because I just think they're funny. But no one suggested that Robin Hood should delegate everything to the poor. And then all the merry men can just sit around and relax. But the idea here is that even though Robin Hood in the case is chomping on a mutton leg or something, he should be taking some action. Eventually he's going to have to. And if he doesn't take action, right, if he doesn't have a strategy, well, that in and of itself is a strategy, but it might not be the one that he desires, right? So if he waits long enough, the sheriff's going to kill him or arrest him, or the barons will withdraw their deal, or, maybe it'd have a good outcome. Somebody else, ransoms King Richard, but something's going to happen. And so in strategic management, we like to think of our players or the firm that we're analyzing as being proactive, that they're going to make decisions and then follow through on the action based on the analysis and our recommendations. And then finally, it's useful to recognize that actions have risks and no strategy is guaranteed success, right? And so here you have to declare what you rob from the rich, but you can deduct what you give to the poor. So even the tax consequences of your strategy would be something that you want to assess, but also, what's the likelihood of success? How much is it going to cost? Are we going to be able to afford it? Is it in the best interests of our organization? Does it mean we have to change the mission of our organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this was it's shorter than the last video lecture, but that's kind of what I wanted to get you to start thinking about as we move forward in our seminar this semester.